All right, so I'm going to roll a d3, and we've got Kansas. Kansas, give us a recap from your player's perspective. Oh, never mind. It looks like Barney already did it. He was in the middle of typing, I guess. I don't know. He might be wanting to wipe that from his memory so that he doesn't have to relive that incident again. Just as Irene just said there. So yes, so we had two primary active groups last time. The third group was just kind of in the shadows, figuratively and literally, and we had our two groups who were trying to escape from their predicaments. They finally managed to reunite, and Kansas, Barney, Irene, Alonzo, and Charles all made their way back to Barney's townhouse and settled in for the evening. A quick timestamp here. It is very early in the morning. Everyone is very tired. You've had a long day of activity, pushed on into the evening because you had some things you were wanting to do, and you are definitely feeling the fatigue sink in, especially Kansas. Kansas is like death warmed over. He is in some rough shape. Not only because of his hangover, but then also because of the beating that he took and everything else. Yeah, Barney and Irene are covered in coal dust. They look filthy, but all for in all, they're uh, less worse for wear. Charles probably isn't feeling very good after he's recovering from his hangover, and same thing for Alonzo. Was there anything that you guys wanted to do in particular before you cleaned up, settled in for the evening, and tried to catch some Z's? Okay. How many bathrooms does your townhouse have, Barney? It is just kind of a small, modest townhouse, so I probably wouldn't say more than a couple. But it's your townhouse, so alright, looks like Brice is joining us.
Sound check.
I hear you loud and clear.
Same.
We just got started, Brice. We're giving a recap of what happened the night before and what is happening once you guys arrive back at the townhouse and before you settle in to go to bed. So, uh, whatever it is that Charles would wish to be doing during this time frame, he does have a bit of a hangover and is feeling a bit puny, fatigued, tired from a day of activities and a wild night of partying.
So last I remember, we were drunkenly stumbling to try to find Kansas.
Okay, so yeah, you weren't with us last time because of your connection issues. So let me give you a quick recap from Charles's perspective. So Charles and Alonzo met in the shadows with the dancer, and that was where you left off during the session that you were with us, a couple times ago. And that is exactly where we picked back up again whenever everyone all reunited with you. So um, the timelines all converged back together again. Um, Kansas ended up escaping from his predicament, and Irene and Barney finished taking care of what they were doing and managed to get away. And they all kind of came back. They noticed Charles and Alonzo kind of hanging out on the street corner in the shadows, trying to hide, but not really doing so well at it. And, they came up to you. And this was just after you had met with the dancer, and she had gone into the club to talk to the owner, and then came back out to talk to you guys, and left to go home. And so that's where we picked back up. And so everyone, once all reunited, uh, you headed back to Barney's townhouse, and so here you are now. The trip back was fairly uneventful, other than everyone looking kind of rough. Kansas, very rough. He is suffering from a serious injury to the jaw. And Barney and Irene, they are just filthy. They look like chimney sweeps. They're covered in coal dust and just have all kinds of crud all over them. Alonzo seems to be expressing the fact that he's getting a little bit of cold feet after seeing the condition that Kansas is in, and he's kind of on the fence. He's not really sure exactly, that he's committed to this endeavor. It's getting a little bit too serious for his tastes, and he might try to pursue other avenues. But he is going to, at least at a minimum, help to treat Kansas.
I just risked my ass for you. I could have just let you get jumped, and you're gonna leave us now?
He just stays silent and shakes his head. He doesn't look like he's in the mood for talking to you.
This is the first time you've said nothing since I met you.
As he continues to treat Kansas. He's like, "Would you shut your mouth? I'm trying to take care of Kansas here. I can't concentrate with your yammering."
Oh, that's right. I forgot you're not a very good doctor. You need to concentrate more. I'll leave you alone.
And so let me pull up Alonzo here. Make a medicine roll for him.
Hey guys, I'm wondering how come we was in the bar fight and you guys look worse than we do? How's it going, Doc?
He'll spin the luck. He seems to be rather distracted, by the fact that Charles is talking to him and everything, and he's got other things on
Story.
his mind. But he manages to get lucky, and he uh, patches up Kansas, enough to uh, at least get him feeling a little bit better. Irene went and took a shower as soon as you guys got back to the townhouse, and so she ran off to the showers to get cleaned up, while Barney, Kansas, and Charles all kind of sat around talking and trying to decide on what they were going to do with their time.
Oh yeah. By the way, um, here's your hat, Kansas.
You notice that it has a bit of a smell of funk to it, Kansas.
I think you might have puked in it before you left. It smells a little. All right, what do I need to roll?
roll, roll fast talk.
I got a 7. What could go wrong? I'm spinning the luck.
That was a mighty good roll.
I'm spinning 2 of my 12 luck.
So, under some circumstances, we could do this as an opposed check. Kansas could roll psychology to see whether or not he was lying, but in this instance, it is a plausible thing because Kansas knows that he was drunk as a skunk and puking and everything else. So, it's not an unreasonable thing to think that Kansas puked in his hat.
I tried to rinse it out a little bit for you, but you might need you might need to put something a little stronger in.
Now, with a good rinsing and some soap and everything, then it should, get cleaned up. But right now it was just kind of crudely rinsed out, and so there's still some chunks maybe and a bit of smell. Yes, Irene can be in the shower during all of this, and at whatever point you think the time is right for Irene to emerge from the shower, then you can jump in. Plus, Irene found something that she might want to be using whenever she was. Actually, I guess Barney was the one who found it, but Irene confiscated it.
So, all the coal, I mean, you're in a basement. Was the basement full of coal, or did you have to climb in a chimney or something? Oh, that's a pretty funny sight to be seen. And by the way, Alonzo does know kung fu.
A quick timestamp, which I think you missed, Charles. It's about 1 a.m. in the morning, 1 to 2 a.m. So it's very late, and everyone is all feeling rather tired. There's a couple things that they wanted to discuss briefly, but there's quite a few heavy eyelids, fatigued muscles. Um, so you guys will probably want to be hitting the sack pretty soon. Okay, Barney makes his rounds, making sure that everything is uh, locked up, secured. Checks with the house staff, make sure that they're properly briefed. Perhaps maybe not too much information to keep from concerning them, but at least let them know that they need to be attentive for anything unusual. And yes, once you head to bed, and you get a night's sleep, then you can roll for luck. There's a couple showers in the house, Charles, so you can find an empty bathroom with a shower. Only if you fail. So it's a standard luck improvement roll. You you roll just as if you were trying to see if you succeed at any kind of improvement roll. Yes, everyone roll your luck. Sure, I will give the two birthday boys an extra. Uh, did both of you succeed at your luck rolls? Or should I say fail? fail at your luck rolls. Barney did and Kansas did. Okay, so roll an extra d10. Alright, Charles, that was not a luck roll. I'm not sure what you rolled, but it was just a d100. Yes, you two guys have birthdays on the same day. Every year. Imagine that. Alright, all of you sleep relatively well. Kansas perhaps might be troubled in his sleep. Might not sleep quite as well as everyone else. He's very sore, and depending on how his head is laying on his pillow, he may, ache a bit and wake himself up when he rolls over. Let's see. Let me look at the healing rules here real quick. That was just barely a success. Wounds and healing. Page 119. Treatment of injuries used the medicine skill takes a minimum of 1 hour. It was performed on the same day. You recover 1d3 hit points.
Damn, that was a hell of a punch.
Now I want to see what we do about that major wound that you have. Major wound recovery. A con roll should be made at the end of each week of game time that the major wound box is checked. So you're going to be stuck with that major wound. But you do get a bonus die if you've completed rest in a comfortable environment. And you received effective medical care. Well, you will need to have received effective medical care throughout the week. Once your hit points recover to half or more than half of your full hit point total, you can heal your major wound also. Okay, you did not get first aid within the first hour of receiving your wound, so you don't get an additional first aid roll. Just the medicine is all that helps you for right now. Now, as far as resting, if you have not sustained a major wound, then you recover 1 hit point per day. But if you have suffered a major wound, then you do not get that regular recovery. So everyone else can recover 1 hit point if you're down any. I think Barney's the only one who's moderately injured. Okay, so that puts everyone where they need to be. Like I say, Kansas slept a little bit rough, but it wasn't to the extent that he's not going to get sufficient rest to be able to function for the next day. So you guys all wake up the next morning. It would be sensible for you to maybe sleep in a little bit since you're up so late. But you can determine what your character does. So as we roll through here into the morning, do we have any that are going to be early risers? Okay, so everyone is at least going to stay in bed for a nice 8-hour long nap. And you guys wake up at some point after 10 o'clock the next day. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward the time.
As
here.
Charles comes down and smells the bacon, he goes, "You know, Barney, you know what sucks about being rich? Nothing. This is great."
Did Barney take a shower and get cleaned up before he went to bed, or did you go to bed covered in soot? Okay, so the morning comes. You have a nice breakfast prepared for you by the house staff, and you gather around the table with some of you with a little bit of a headache, some of you perfectly rested, and it's your time to do whatever it is that you wish to do around the morning breakfast table. Actually, Kansas, let's see how much um, you're affected. Go ahead and give me a Constitution with a bonus die. So, Kansas is just mildly impaired. He's feeling a little bit under the weather. His mind's just not completely into it, um, and so um, with his headache, his night of rough sleep, everything else, he's just kind of a little bit off of his game. Barney is an adventurer through and through. He adventures for gold. So Kansas, the items that he shows you are composed of several different things. There's a necklace. Let me find it here. Let's see. There's a metal chain with a black ankh pendant type thing attached to it. There's a crumbling papyrus scroll. There is a pair of scepters made of some sort of a black metal. And the ends of the scepters do have symbols on them as well. Yeah. Oh, there's also some sandstone vials. A couple vials. Which are capped with a cork. He doesn't have the robes. They left the robes behind. Each of the scepters is about a foot long. One ends in a crook, while the other one ends in an ankh. Now, Kansas would recognize that the ankh is inverted and turned upside down from how it normally is in typical Egyptian fashion. Same thing with the necklace. It's upside down as well. The vials seem to be made of some sort of reddish brown sandstone, and you'd have to open them up to see what's inside of them. There doesn't seem to be any kind of markings or anything on the vials. Yes, you did. The Cult of the Black Pharaoh. Is a symbol that looks something like that. And that is the symbol that is on this stuff. No, that is upside down also. Kansas had seen that symbol. I think it was in the book that he found in the library. Yes, especially if you, well, the scroll, whenever you unroll it, it has Egyptian hieroglyphs on it. Yes, you will need to do a language check if you want to be able to read those. All right. Your failed con roll is more for role-playing purposes. I'm not going to give you any penalty dice, um, but you should just kind of role-play out that you're suffering from a severe hangover and everything else. Kansas checks out the hieroglyphs. The parchment is very old and crumbly, and the symbols are just kind of blurring together, and he's just not able to focus on enough to make any kind of sense out of it. Welcome, Fun.
Hello.
So we're just resuming with the morning after. They're going over some evidence and having their powwow over breakfast. Alright, so in addition to the parchment that you look at, you're not really able to deduce very much from it at this particular time, but you look a little bit closer at the scepters, and you notice that the symbols that's kind of on the end of the scepters is kind of just odd looking. There's something about it that just looks almost organic looking. It's as if the metal was grown, like it just something about it almost looks like it doesn't look like it was forged that way. It looks like it was um, almost like a living thing, like a piece of bone or something like that, that you can't really see any kind of forge marks or anything like that. Now you can give me an archaeology roll to try to determine anything extra about the sandstone vials, about the scepters. Finally, he gets a good roll. All right. So, the scepters, as I said before, have the symbol of a crook and an inverted looking ankh on the end of the other one. Your archaeology roll would let you know that scepters were often used as symbols of power. And there was even belief amongst some that they actually granted power themselves and not just merely just a symbol. That if a scepter was used in a specific way, that the user was granted certain benefits from its use. Because of your extreme success, you also know that many times in scrolls and statues, engravings, those sort of things, you often see the individuals holding the scepters in each hand and crossing them over each other in front of the chest, where they bisect and and cross each other, one pointing to one shoulder and the other one pointing to the other shoulder. Give me a perception check. Not so much for Kansas, because Kansas is holding them over his chest and probably not looking down at them, but for the others who are watching him do this. Wow. Man. Okay, now you're getting the rolls. Okay, Charles is busy eating, shoveling food in his face. He kind of like glances over and looks, but then he looks back down at his plate again as he's shoveling in the good English breakfast, some blood sausage. And he doesn't really notice this as much as Irene and Barney do, because they're really looking intently at Kansas as he's demonstrating his knowledge. And they're not hung over. Yes, that is a good point as well, Charles. Now, as you're looking at Kansas and he crosses these over his chest in just merely a demonstration, just to show what he has seen before, a very, very faint, almost eerie looking kind of greenish glow kind of emits from the scepters. It probably wouldn't have been noticeable by most people because it's light out, lights coming in the windows and everything, and you probably wouldn't have noticed it if you hadn't just been looking at them so closely. Oh, they're still glowing. They stay glowing as long as he keeps them crossed over his chest. He demonstrates, and then as soon as he moves his hands when he's done demonstrating, then the glow goes away. Give me a willpower roll, Kansas. Kansas doesn't really feel anything different. Maybe just kind of a little bit of a fuzzy feeling, but I mean that could easily just be the side effects of his rough night that he had. You do not. Nope. Your archaeology roll uh, lets you know the historical significance and the lore behind the use of the scepters, but as far as these specific ones, that would need a different type of skill. Do you have occult? going to spend it? Okay. So, because you spent luck, you don't get to check mark it, but you do succeed and you get your information. So, once it's pointed out to Kansas about these things glowing, it kind of jogs a memory in his mind of an old story that he came across at one point in the past in some obscure book. And it was talking about some scepters which the user, and at the time of your reading, you didn't even really know what they were, who was using them, or anything like that. But you came across a passage about some scepters that were possessed by some ancient ruler in Egypt, and you kind of dismissed it as probably folklore and fairy tale and all that kind of stuff initially. But now that it's actually in front of you and it's happening, it has brought that to light. And you recall the story about this particular individual who had these, that they would use their scepters to imbue themselves with magical power. And they could also be used to protect them from magic as well. Now, because of your extreme success that you got on your archaeology roll earlier, that was for you checking out all of these various different items. I'm going to say that the two sandstone vials that you get, each one of them has you didn't see it at first, but as you examine them closer, you can just faintly detect a slight symbol, very worn in the sandstone. And you know that sandstone vials were used by Egyptians to contain various different substances, and they would put a cork stopper on the end of it. Sometimes it would be a powder, sometimes it would be a liquid. It would vary. Now, you haven't told me that you're wanting to open these up yet, so let me know if you're opening them up in the process of your archaeology examination. One of them contains kind of a red syrupy substance, and the other one contains a powdery substance. Let me see what. A black powder flecked with odd looking crystals that are almost of like a rubbery kind of a consistency. Give me a archaeology. I mean, not an archaeology. Another Egyptian language role for the symbols that's on the vials. Hey, you can certainly check mark that now. Okay, even though you had kind of like glanced over it at first, and you didn't really see anything on there, as you're examining these sandstone vials and trying to determine what kind of significance they have, you do notice this very, very faint, very worn looking kind of symbol in each one of them. And when you check out the contents, it the symbol was just barely recognizable, and you probably wouldn't have been able to decipher what it was. But once you examine the contents, then that kind of rings a bell again and kind of kicks in a few things in your head, and you recall some ancient Egyptian words and terms. And the red syrupy substance and the symbol that is on that one is something that's called Obra'an. And then the other one with the crystalline, powdery, rubbery kind of a substance in it. The symbol that is on that one is Gabeshagal. Oh, actually, remove the A. Gabesh Gal. There we go. That's what it's called. Now, because of your extreme success, critical success on that, I'm going to give you a retroactive deciphering of the scroll. You weren't really able to read the scroll very well at first, but now that you've deciphered these two symbols on these vials, you recall that those were also on that scroll. And it seems as if the scroll was giving some sort of instructions on how to use these vials. Now, because this is a retroactive kind of a thing, I'm not going to give you the full information because you failed your first check. So because you did so well at deciphering these symbols and the contents of the things, I kind of gave you a bonus to go back and let you know that the scroll is talking about these vials and telling you how to use the vials, and the symbols for these vials is also on the scroll. But I'm not going to give you the full deciphering of it because you did fail your initial roll. Perhaps maybe the scroll was too brittly and crumbly, and whenever you were trying to examine it, some it seems that there was something about I'll let you pick out another word. Again, not the full context, but something about using these vials and their contents on a mirror. Or, let me rephrase that. The glass that looks back at you. Reflecting glass. There we go. How about that? Reflecting glass. Any other type of analysis of these substances or anything else is going to require some sort of a science type of role, some analysis using the sciences. Okay, I have placed that into your party sheet inventory. Yes, there was the necklace. And the necklace, the metal on the necklace is a. Well, the first thing about it is that it also has the inverted Ankh symbol on it as well. And then it's made of the necklace and the metal Ankh. I mean the Ankh symbol on it is made out of some sort of metal. It doesn't really look like there's anything special about it. At least not without any type of metallurgy type of analysis or anything like that. Yeah, Irene would definitely have some scientific analysis at her disposal. Q would definitely like to tinker around with such things. Of course, Charles is talking about her people, but I'm not sure that Barney and Charles are, Kansas, Barney and Kansas, I don't think they're fully aware of who her people are. Unless I'm. Okay. I wasn't sure if you had gone into the full details with everyone. So it was just Alonzo that didn't know. Got it.
Is Alonzo still around? What's he doing?
Uh, he's in his room. He's sulking. You actually don't know what he's up to. He's not up for breakfast though. You guess he's probably sleeping in. Go away. My head hurts. Thanks. I'll get some later. Haha, you're so funny, G-Man. Just out of curiosity, because you guys are amassing quite a collection of items, where are you keeping all of these things? That's what I thought. I thought you were keeping them at the townhouse. But I just wanted to make sure. Alright, so I think we're at the standard part of the day here where we decide what we're going to do with our day. So if we move over to the party sheet, I still have several quests that are up along the top there. The Blue Pyramid Club, Penhue Foundation, Mickey Mahoney, Zahra Shafiq and Empire Spices, David Jordan, and Thomas Jacobs. Now those last two, I'll set those off to the side, because those are kind of just for Irene. Okay, so we'll add another quest into the onto the list here. And this is while we're in London. New quest. And we're going to analyze artifacts. Take items to an expert to have them analyzed. Alright. There we go, we have a new quest pin there.
Time around that, maybe follow the vehicle when it comes out. That might lead us right to what's going on. We could at least take a look and see who's involved.
Okay, so as usual, move your tokens to whichever task it is that you're wishing to perform. If there's one that I don't have up there that you're wanting to do, just bring it to my attention.
Yeah, I don't think I think the owner knows what's going on, but I don't think he's really involved. He definitely said that the guy that was getting us drunk and asking us questions, he was definitely involved in that Black Pharaoh thing you're talking about. I think the best bet would be to tail them and follow them, seeing where they're going. Maybe Inspector Barrington would be able to put some guys on that. She also said they killed his boyfriend, her boyfriend, I guess, when he was prying a little too deep. So they ain't to be taken too lightly, you know.
It was, I'm going to clarify something there. It wasn't because he was prying into things. It was
And I don't think me or Kansas can go back there. Sorry, Kansas, but I was wearing your hat so I wouldn't forget it, and I kind of put my knife up to some waiter's balls to let the Chinaman go.
yeah, the reason that he got killed was because he threatened someone who was coming on to his girlfriend. And that particular person just happened to be one of the cult members.
Yeah, Bonnie, that might be a good idea. If you can talk to the owner, he knows some stuff. He just ain't gonna talk to me at Kansas, and especially not Alonzo. Alonzo, I'm pretty sure threatened to kill him. I'm not sure. I wasn't there, but that's what it sounded like. He kind of went ape shit and he started threatening everybody. I really don't know exactly what set him off. I think he was concerned about Kansas. You know, you just disappeared like that. You left your hat behind. You never do that. I just figured they're gonna put you to sleep it off somewhere, but looks like his suspicion was right. Irene, you were slapjacking two cops that were asking you questions, weren't you? It's kind of similar, don't you? So you can use your imagination. Hey, at least we got an excuse. And besides, I was saving Alonzo. I didn't start no brawl.
Alright, are you guys ready to head out and look into the things that you've discussed? Okay, so Kansas wants to go to Mickey Mahoney, find out what he's all about. Irene's going to go analyze this objects. Okay, Barney, what are you doing? They can tell you that the bar's operating hours, or the club, I should say, the Blue Pyramid, is operating between 6 p.m. and 1 a.m.
You ain't looking so good. If you don't mind, I'm gonna tag along with you. There's been a lot of stuff going on. I'd hate to see you get picked up in your condition.
Charles is going with Kansas.
Yeah, if he doesn't object, I mean, he looks like crap.
Okay.
And I felt bad I puked in his hat and lied about it.
Irene probably doesn't want to take anyone with her. Since it is a secure facility. Okay, so the three guys are all going to go see Mickey. And Irene is going to her place. Alright, so that is going to be a pretty quick thing, so let's do Irene's thing first. That'll be quick. We'll get it out of the way, and then we'll do the whole thing with Mickey. Alright, so Irene, you head to your office. Anything particular that you an approach that you wish to make as you head there? Okay. We can certainly address that whenever you arrive. Alright, so you just head straight to the office. You check in, you file your reports. Whenever you're talking to your supervisor, they thank you for your diligence, for the information that you've come up with. There is some concern over this activity on the Queen Mother's soil. Actually, I guess it's a king now in this time frame, right? So, and there is a feeling that they should keep their eyes open and kind of looking to the shadows, but definitely inform Scotland Yard since they have an ongoing investigation. Let them be the ones to do all the grunt work and everything else, and you know, your organization can keep their eyes in the shadows to kind of pick up things that may be on the fringe that the Scotland Yard isn't taking care of. Okay, you drop off the artifacts. You are informed that it's going to take a little bit of time to run the analysis on them to find out any more details. Okay, so you are not going to call Inspector Barrington and let him know directly. You're going to just let it go through official channels. I mean, it can definitely go through official channels, but since you kind of had a personal interaction with the inspector, I mean, you could be warranted to just kind of give him a call and give him some information that you had found. Not really so much blowing your cover. I mean, you're still a journalist, and journalists snoop around and ask questions. Now, you might not go into that detail, but I don't know. You could, if you wanted to keep your name out of it, and so you didn't have to explain how you got the information, then you can definitely just let it go through the official channels. I mean, either way is fine. Just however you want to handle it. Okay. So, a report is drafted up informing Scotland Yard about the threats and the information that has been discovered, and lets them know that they may want to look into the activities of these individuals. So who are you naming in it? Are you naming just the spice shop and Zafik, or are you naming anyone else? Okay. All right, so we'll leave that at that. And it has been a couple days, I believe, since you last reported in, which was how long I said it would take to um, come up with a 45 ACP suppressor. And so whenever you take your stuff to Q to let him know, um, or to have him conduct his experiments on it, he tells you that he has obtained the items that you requested. Now give me a quick reminder on exactly what it was that you had asked him for. You wanted a small caliber, like a Walther. Okay. Um, Give me a luck roll. The first one will be for Kansas. Okay. He was not able to get a noise amplifier. No, he was not able to acquire a 45 ACP suppressor. However, he does have a Walther with a suppressor on it that has been cleaned of all marks, of all identification. And he reminds you of your responsibility to your country and ensuring that the individuals that you are giving these to fall under your sponsorship. Okay, give me a second luck roll, Irene. This one will be for Charles. Oh my gosh. Oh. Double fumbles. Get those fumbles out of the way. And so, again, the same thing with Charles. They were not able to suppress his 45. He is also getting a small caliber suppressed pistol. Was she getting something for Barney too? I don't recall that. I only recall Charles in Kansas. I don't think you're going to be able to suppress your elephant gun. And what was your permit going to be for, Barney? Okay. She is able to get a permit for Barney because those were fumbles on those rolls. They weren't able to get a permit for Kansas or for Charles. They were just able to get the um, documentation free or free of all markings and everything. The low caliber. A call for what happened at the Blue Pyramid. Yeah. That's probably very likely. And so because Irene asked for the equipment, she's able to acquire it. But her request for permits for the Americans gets denied. Um, of course, the guns are still hers to do with as she wishes, but she is cautioned to be careful who she lets have them because she is ultimately responsible for their actions. And as far as Barney goes, Barney does get a permit. And so he is Irene through her channels. She's able to fast track a permit. Barney acquires one, and he is able to legally carry a handgun within the country of England. And so that takes care of all of that. Um, and then Irene, after she leaves the bureau, the office, and then she can pursue her personal things after that. So, we're going to jump over to Kansas, Charles, and Barney as they head over to Mickey Mahoney's. Alright, let's pull up Yeah, we'll get back to that here in just a bit, Irene. That'll be your second task for the afternoon. You take care of the office stuff in the late morning. Alright, so you guys head over to Mickey Mahoney's, and let me locate that section. Alright. So, Mickey Mahoney is located at a newspaper called The Scoop. He was given, Army, you were given his name by Jackson Elias's friends in New York. And so you've finally gotten around to looking into this potential lead. You look up the address of the Scoop, and you head on over to their offices. The Scoop seems to be a relatively small, almost kind of like a private press, kind of a periodical. The offices are found on the third floor of a shabby building on Fleet Street, not far from Ludgate Circus. You enter into the main office entrance, and you can hear the noisy clatter of typewriters, people talking. And in the background, you can hear the sound of typeset. There is a receptionist as you step into the office. It almost looks like a large open floor plan. There's a couple office spaces. You see some office doors. They're open. You can hear people yelling from one room to the next. No, this is not a major newspaper. This is uh, kind of think of it like the National Enquirer, kind of a thing. No, not so much BS, but just a small private press. It's not a major. I guess the National Enquirer is kind of a major thing, but we're not talking about like the New York Times or you know anything like that. We're talking about a small scale, kind of a press. Have you guys seen the girl with the dragon tattoo? So imagine that it's something kind of like that. It's a group of journalists who get together and they write articles, and it's not a major publication, daily publication kind of a thing. They just come out with like a weekly release, and every now and then they'll have a big expose or something or other. But they do kind of report on stuff that is more unusual, stuff that the regular paper might not report on, or at least they report in a different way. Okay, so anyway, you walk up to the receptionist. Yes, sir. How can I help you? Yes, sir. Mickey's here. Is he expecting you? Ah, so you're from the States. I thought that it was an odd accent that you had. Yes, yes. Yeah. Give me one moment. Hey, Mickey. Yeah. What do you want, Dorley? Someone's here to see you about Jackson Elias. About Jackson? Hold on a second. You see a face emerge from around the corner of a doorway. What are you guys? He kind of looks at you, kind of questioningly a little bit. He walks up to the desk. He says, "What do you guys know about Jackson?" Yeah, sure. Come on, step into my office. His office is like 5 steps away. I mean, it's like I said, it's a pretty small scale kind of an office space here. So, you just simply have to step around the receptionist desk and take 5 paces, and there's the doorway for Mickey's little room that he's in. He pulls up a chair behind his desk and has a seat. He says, "Sorry, fellas, sorry, gents, but I have just one chair in here. A couple of you are going to have to stand."
Kansas, you look worse for the wear. Why don't you have a seat? Yeah, no problem, man.
He kind of gives you a little bit of a look whenever you ask about Charles and relationship, and I mean not Charles. When you ask about Jackson and the relationship. He says, "Well, he was passing through here not long ago. Said he wanted to meet with me. How about you? How do you know him?" There's not any room to move, Barney. I mean, we're talking about like a 10-foot by 10-foot room, of which the desk is taking up, um, the majority of it, and he's sitting behind the desk, and there's a chair on the other side, and there's just barely enough room for you to stand. Ah, so you did know about him being killed. Well, I guess you are friends of his then. I was I was very sad to hear about that in the wires. Yes, he told the same thing to me. Said he had some information that he wanted to give me. Said that he promised me a story about an evil cult operating here in the heart of the city. he hinted that they might be well connected, but he didn't really have any proof. I never did get the story, but I'd still like to have it if you have any information. I can pay you 15 pounds if you can give me any details. 15 pounds is equivalent to about $75 US. No, like I said, he just gave me the generic information, said he had a story for me, said there was a cult, but he didn't give me any more details after that. And then I never heard anything more from him. And then last thing that I know, I read in the wires about how he was killed over in New York. Just said there were some high connections, but no names. Since you're friends of his, you have any information for me? I'm always on the prowl for a good story. You have any other good stories? Oh, so there is a cult. So you at least have verification of that then.
Yeah, we're still working on some details. We don't want to give you any false information, but we might have something for you.
Yes. Well, we don't want any false information now, do we? But now you come and see Mickey Mahoney as soon as you find something out, because the Scoop wants your story. Irene was able to get some small caliber suppressed pistols with no identification, but she was not able to get any permits. Okay, Barney, since you told me that you were specifically looking for other things, give me a spot hidden roll with a bonus die. Okay, you notice some scraps of paper on Mahoney's desk, which is kind of a bit cluttered and messy, and things are kind of strewn about haphazardly. But you do notice a couple articles. First off, the headlines are what draw your attention. I'm going to give you the headline, and then give me a 1d4 roll. Okay. You will be able to easily make out one of the three. The other two, you would need to do something more to be able to see more of the article. Shocking canvases craze. Local artists, monstrous scenes mock surrealists. The second article. Police baffled by monstrous murders. Killer beast shot but still alive? Question mark. And the next headline that you notice, slaughter continues, reward offered. Which one of those three do you want to say is easily readable? Okay. You can easily see the third article. The other two are kind of a little bit obscured by other papers that are laying over the top of them slightly, and you can't really see the main text of the article. But the one that caught your eye and you can fully see says, slaughter continues, reward offered. And I'm going to post it here under evidence. An unidentified foreigner was found floating in the Thames last Tuesday, the 24th. Another victim of the so-called Egyptian murders? Inspector James Barrington of the Yard refused to comment when asked by The Scoop. Sources exclusive to this journal state that the victim had been beaten severely and then stabbed through the heart in a manner curiously similar to the other murders that have taken place over the last 3 years. The connection seems obvious, but New Scotland Yard has yet to confirm that the deaths are connected. Inspector Barrington and his colleagues appear baffled and no closer to catching the heinous perpetrator of these crimes. Londoners cry out, "When will our streets be safe?" Readers of The Scoop are reminded that this esteemed journal has a reward now standing at £24 for information leading to the apprehension and conviction of the murderer. Be vigilant. The other two articles, I'm sharing a portion of it with you. Excuse me. And just to give you a time frame, this is the 12th of February. And so the article is referring to the 24th, and you can only assume that that was the 24th of last month. You don't see a date on the article. What? What information is that? What are you? Oh, that article. Yes, yes. Have you not heard about the Egyptian murders? I figured since you're here, uh, talking about this cult and everything, that you at least knew about the Egyptian murders. Well, that was part of the stuff that Jackson was going to tell me about. I mean, we know that these murders have been taking place, but when Jackson said that there was some sort of a cult, then we started putting the pieces together, and we figured that it was all related to this cult activity. But like I said, Jackson never gave me any details. Although he did say that he was going to go have a meeting with Edward Gavigan um, from the Pinhue Foundation, I believe it was. Never did hear anything more about that, though, like I told you. Are you a subscriber of The Scoop? You sound like a proper English gentleman. Yes, yes. Well, we can set you up with a subscription with the receptionist up front. We will get you on our mailing list. Of course, we do have a minimal fee for subscription. We do need to pay for our printing and everything else. But the populace needs to be informed, and that is our job here at the Scoop. To report on the things that the other papers won't. Oh yes, yes. You could peruse some of our back issues if you wished. But anyway, here's these other articles. Just some other things that I've worked on in the past. I'm not sure if there's any kind of a connection to all of these or not. It's something I've been kind of working on, but without any kind of information, I can't really make any definitive ties, but there's just something in my gut just tells me that it's all related somehow. And so I'm going to reveal the rest of the first one. He shows you the article. It says shocking canvases craze, local artists, monstrous scenes, mock surrealists. Now collectors can buy savage scenes which rival or surpass the worst nightmares of the Great War, but which are far more exotic than that grim business. London artist Mr. Miles Shipley's work is being sought out by collectors who have paid up to £300 for individual paintings. This correspondent has seen a number of works of artist Miles Shipley and finds them repulsive beyond belief. Maidens ravished, monsters ripping out a man's innards, shadowy, grotesque landscapes, and faces grimacing in horror represent only a fraction of Shipley's nightmarish work. Despite their repellent content, these works are conceived and executed with uncanny verisimilitude. Mr. Shipley's imagination is sublime, and it is almost as though the artist had worked from photographs of alien places, surely never of this earth. The artist reportedly is in contact with other dimensions in which powerful beings exist. He says he merely renders visible his visions. Mr. Shipley is a working-class man without formal artistic training who has nonetheless made good where thousands have failed. Art critics say that Shipley provides an English answer to the continental artistic movement of surrealism, whose controversial practitioners have still to convince John Bull that the way in which the thing is painted is more important than what is painted. A tip of the hat to Mr. Shipley for exposing those frauds. And then the second article. Yes. I'd be glad to give you his address. I'll have to look it up. Give me just a second. Here. Check out this other article while I look that up. He hands the other article over to you. Police baffled by monstrous murders. Killer beast shot but still alive. Derwent Valley resident shocked last month by 2 murders and a serious assault on a 3rd victim are still without a satisfactory explanation or perpetrator of the dreadful attacks. At that time, Lesser Edale farmer George Osgood and resident Lydia Perkins were torn to shreds in apparently unrelated murders on consecutive nights. On the 3rd night, wheelwright Harold Short was nearly killed but managed to drive off his attacker, which he described as a grisly creature. According to the Lesser Edale Constabulary, a rabid dog was shot and killed on the night of Mr. Short's attack. The police believe the matter to be closed. Nevertheless, local residents have subsequently claimed to have seen and heard a strange beast lurking about the area. Reportedly, the good folk of Lesser Edale still endure sleepless nights due to the bizarre wailings of the beast on nights of the full moon. Readers of the Scoop are reminded of their esteemed journal's long-standing danger protocols and are advised that the picturesque clouds of the Derbyshire Peak District have been declared to be a zone of high danger. Residents of the Midlands are advised to remain indoors at night and to report all mysterious happenings to the police and to the Scoop. And now, yes, let me see. He's kind of flipping through his Rolodex, looking for the address. Let's see. SSH, Shipley. Ah, yes, almost. Yes, here it is. I have it. He lives at 6 Holbein Mews near Sloane Square. Yes, a Walther PPK is a 38 caliber. I'm not sure if the PPK was actually in production in 25, though. There is another predecessor Walther, though. If the PPK wasn't in production in 25, there was another. Predecessor to the PPK. But it is going to be a 38. So, yes, it's going to be a suppressed 38. It was the Walther PP was the predecessor to the PPK, I believe. Nope, because that was in 35. Well, designed in 29. Let's see. Let's look up history of Walther firearms. We'll get a little bit of a history lesson here. Founded in 1886. There it is, the Walther Model 4. It's actually a 32 ACP. That was the one I was looking for. Yeah, I knew it had more of a angular. It wasn't as sleek as the PP and the PPK. Let's see what the production on the Model 4 is. So the 32 was in use from 1899 on. Here we go. No, that's a P38. Anyway. But yes, a 32. Yeah, the PPK is a 380 auto, but the Model 4 is a 32. You should be able to find that in the firearms inventory. Okay, so let me give you this address in writing. Okay, so anyway, back to Mahoney. But anyway, talking about your friend Jackson, he never mentioned the name of the cult, nor did he talk about any of his suspicions, other than the fact that there was something strange going on here in London. He was excited to browse through our back issues, though, just like you were. He picked out a few stories that caught his eye. And those are the 3 that I have here on my desk. I don't know if your friend followed up on any of these stories, though. He seemed rushed and desperate, and before I knew it, I never heard anything more from him. Then I read the read the wire about him being killed in New York. Oh, you have a name? What's the name? Mind me, I won't publish it until you have more information, but these are the juicy details. Ooh, the Black Pharaoh. That sounds ominous. Sounds like it has the pharaohs. Those are those Egyptian kings, right? So I guess that's why all the victims are Egyptian. You can look in those back articles if you want. Um, be my guest. You be sure and come see old Mickey Mahoney though. Whenever you have details that's ready for the scoop. Our readers must know the truth.
Do you have any previous articles on this Black Pharaoh cult? Anything that could help us with some more information?
I didn't know anything about Black Pharaoh cult until you told me about it.
What about this giant monster you got going around? When did that happen? How long ago?
I don't remember a lot of the details of this. I have the article sitting out on my desk, but you could look back in the notes and in the back articles and everything and find that information out.
All right, we appreciate that little exchange of information. Never hurt anybody.
It was a while
Well,
back.
maybe.
I don't remember a lot of the details about it. So many things come across my desk. I got all these ideas, and I just jot down my notes, and I just spit the stuff out on paper. He takes Barney's card. Now, if you don't mind, you can see Dora Lee about signing up for that subscription, and we'll make sure you get access to those reserved articles. So he takes you up to see Dora Lee, and the subscription is £5 for a year subscription of articles from the Scoop. which is easily within Barney's financial means. Which address are you using for the subscription to be delivered to, Barney? Okay. That'd be funny. Yes, yes, back here in the back room, in those files back there. That's where we keep all of the old articles and the notes associated with them. He directs you to a room back at the back of the office, past the printing presses and everything else, and it's a musty, dusty old room with a bunch of um, folders on shelves and filing cabinets and stuff, and um, he leaves you to your devices in the room. So if you want to conduct research, give me a library use roll. Everyone that's here can make one. Kansas is just bound and determined to use up all of his luck, isn't he? Okay, you guys rummage through the stuff in the room, and you're trying to find some semblance of order. Things are ordered by date, and you are able to locate um, the three articles, or the notes pertaining to the three articles that he had copies of on his desk. And the first one, according to the notes, the story notes, it seems like the story was prompted by a small unsuccessful show given by the artist Miles Shipley. And it lists his address as 6 Holbein Mews, Chelsea, London, SW1W. Same address that you guys have, that he had given you. And that's really the only thing that you can discern from that. You find that the story about Derbyshire and the creature and all that stuff, it arose from a article in the Derbyshire Regional Press. Looks like Mahoney had picked it up and rewritten it for the scoop. What notes exist are scant, merely stating the murders took place in Lesser Edale, a village in rural Derbyshire. doesn't really go into any other information. Something you would have to just personally investigate yourself if you were wanting to look into it. And then the third article, there's some notes referring to Jackson Elias that clues given by Jackson Elias. Individual believe that the spat of murders were connected. Elias did not give further details. Was known to go visit Inspector Barrington at New Scotland Yard. And so it looked like maybe based off of the lead or the hint that Jackson Elias had given him was basically what let him tie it together, because otherwise he wouldn't have come up with that connection on his own without Jackson coming around and talking about it. Is basically what you deduce from the notes. Okay, so you guys wrap up your research, you leave the scoop, and everyone give me a spot hidden roll. Okay, as you guys all leave the office, you confer on what you want to look into next, and we will jump over to Irene as she conducts her other personal task. And what does Kansas, Charles, and Barney want to look into?
What was the guy that was getting us drunk asking all the questions?
That
What's his name?
That was, let me look at my notes here, Xavier. Xavier T. Carlton.
How far until the new moon? We still have a few days.
Let's see. Based on your notes, look at the calendar. So you guys, I have marked the moon cycles on the calendar. So it looks like the 8th was a full moon. And if you look through the month, you'll see that the 23rd is the next new moon. And we are now into the afternoon. It has taken you guys a few hours to get your stuff taken care of for the first part of the day. So you guys were going to the Pinhue Foundation again as your second task of the day. Oh, you said that you wanted to look into Garrion, so Garrion's private residence. Okie dokie. So, how are you going to acquire his address of his private residence? You have some ideas on how you're going to acquire that information? Hit and miss. Plus, some people might not be listed. Or not everyone has a phone. Could be public records of the library. Yes, you could go to the library and make some research rolls at the library for trying to find out that information. Perhaps maybe the tax assessor's office or something like that. Okay, so that's what you guys are going to do. I'm going to put that, even though it's not technically the Pinhue Foundation, it's related to that because you're looking up Garrion, so I'm going to put you guys on that task. The local lodge, yeah, Charles could maybe inquire there. Okay, Irene, so what are you doing for your second half of the day? We have about 15 minutes here to 15 to 45 minutes, depending on when we quit. Okay, so the names that you were given were your brother, William, the factory manager, no, wait a minute. He is a factory manager, that's right. He's married to Judy, has a child named Matthew, and he is your older brother. And then Thomas Jacobs is his supervisor. And you did... Oh, actually... Did you find that out? I don't know. Was there any any clues that you guys found out about Thomas Jacobs? No, you didn't find out because Irene never got into the club. Never mind. And then David Jordan is the owner of the factory. Okay. So you are looking into Thomas Jacobs, is that correct? Your brother's supervisor? The one who seems like has him doing this stuff? Starting with the owner of the factory. Okay. So what kind of information are you wanting to get about David Jordan, and what means are you going to obtain that information? Break into his place. Okay. So you're going to break into the factory, into his office. Are you going to go to his home? Okay, it's in the middle of the day, so the factory is going to be open. Now, he is the owner of the company. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's always there. Okay, first you need to find out where he lives. Perhaps maybe your brother knows, or you could research it. Okay, you're going to go to the factory and ask your brother. Okay, you go to the factory in the middle of the day while the factory is working. Have you ever been to the factory before? Other than, like, inside the factory? I know you met your brother outside the factory the other day. Are you staking it out, or are you going inside? Okay, give me a spot hidden roll. Let me see here. You do notice that there is a car that is kind of sitting outside the factory, and it has a couple guys in like some business suits sitting in the car. it doesn't really look like they're looking at you or following you or anything like that. But these guys, they just kind of stand out because they're just kind of sitting there, and it's just kind of odd. This car is parked where it's parked, and it's sitting there running, and these two guys are sitting in the car. Okay, so you're not going into the factory then? You're just gonna stay there? Okay. There's a guy in a suit that eventually comes out of the factory. He's carrying a briefcase. And he goes and he gets into the back seat of the car with the other two guys sitting in the front. He's wearing a fairly nice looking suit. Um, a stylish hat, all of the latest fashion. Looks like your typical, well kept businessman. The car takes off, and you follow it. After some twists and turns and, going down some roads and everything else, the car pulls up in front of the Penhew Foundation. The businessman, he gets out of the car and he walks up into the building. The car with the other two guys in it just continues to sit there. All right. So, let's pull up the old map here. All right, Irene. You are walking into the Penhew Foundation, and there's a receptionist sitting at a desk there at the front. Um, give me a. Let's see. So he was walking into the building. You got out. Were you like rushing up to the building to try to keep him in sight, or were you just moving casually? Okay. So you see him walking down the hall, and he goes into that door right there. Just as you're coming through the doorway, you can see him just turning out of the hallway and going through that door. I know, not from this angle. You'd have to be, you'd have to go down the hallway past the receptionist to be able to see the door. Yes, ma'am. How can I help you? As Irene is up at the reception desk, her spidey senses kind of tingle a little bit, and she hears the door open. And behind her comes in two rather large, burly looking kind of guys that she recognizes as being the drivers of the car. Why, yes, ma'am. The exhibit is open. It is free to the public as well. If you would please head over this way. She motions over to the side stairwell, and you can see a sign, kind of like a pedestal stand with a sign on it that says Egyptian exhibit upstairs, open to the public, free admission. Yes, ma'am, there is an exclusive membership that grants access to our libraries. Members also have access to um, the private examination rooms with the supervision under the supervision of our curator, if they wish to examine things closer. Of course, you would ask me that. And I don't remember how much it was. Let's see. Access to the facility is a reasonable donation of £10, which is $50. Grants 12 months access. So is Irene going to sign up for it right now, or just keeping it in mind? Well, you are in the right place, ma'am. The Penhew Foundation is the premier authority on um, Egyptian expeditions. And we have supported, or the Foundation has supported nearly 20 digs in Egypt. Would you care to fill out the membership application now? Or would you like to visit the exhibit first and fill it out upon your return? Yes, ma'am. Here is the application. She slides some papers over to you, and that will just be £10. You can submit your payment with your completed application. Part of the application is a standard application, um, name, occupation, address, how were you referred to us. What address are you using? Your normal cover address? Okay, how about your occupation? What are you listing for that? Journalist? Okay. She takes your application and she takes your money and she fills out a badge and she hands it to you. This will grant you access to the libraries and the Pinhu Foundation. Just make sure that you have it on you whenever you uh, have it displayed on you whenever you come to visit. And have a good day, ma'am, or Miss Ward. I'm going to assume that you are periodically kind of looking back behind you as you're filling out the paperwork and um, handing it over to her and all that stuff. That you're just kind of, nonchalantly kind of looking around. So the two guys look like they've kind of stepped in and kind of like stepped off to the side of the doorway where they're not blocking the doorway, but they're just kind of standing on each side of the doors. Just kind of in a casual stance kind of a thing. Almost like they're waiting for something. Oh no, ma'am. Those are our drivers. She kind of whispers to you a little bit. She's like, well, I guess they are kind of like guards and drivers, chauffeurs, just kind of, they just watch after or take care of Mr. Pinhu. Or I'm sorry, not Mr. Pinhu, Mr. Gavigan. The exhibit closes at 4, ma'am. So if you wish to see the exhibit, you would probably want to go there first. Then you could visit the libraries later. They are open during our operating hours, which are from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Oh, wait a minute. 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. As you look around inside the building, you notice that the decorations, the appointments within the building are opulent, consisting of 2 stories. The Egyptian collection is open for viewing from noon to 4, Monday through Friday. Oh, just saw your thing about being his driver, so let me read your second. She thought it was a rhetorical question, as I thought it was a rhetorical question. Oh, so they're just his drivers. I was getting excited and thought my membership included a car service. She doesn't seem to have known that it was a question that you expected an answer to. No, she does not correct it. She just doesn't respond to it at all. Yes, ma'am. Mr. Gavigan is very busy, and he only accepts people by special appointment, or if they have a pressing matter. I can pass his message on to him, let him know that a new member of ours from what on your application it would have stated um, your place of work along with what your occupation was. So she glances down at your or down at your place of employment, and what was it called again? Manchester Gazette. That's right. And she glances down and she says, "Ah, the Manchester Gazette. I will pass the word on to him and see if he's interested in giving an exclusive interview to you." Since Irene is spending some amount of time standing there filling out her application and yammering on, uh, there are a couple other people who come in and they kind of like step up to the desk as she was filling out her application, and they inquire about the special exhibit, and the receptionist points over to the stairwell. There's a couple people who just walk straight in and just go straight to the stairwell without inquiring, and so it does seem like there is some traffic uh, of other people coming in and going to the public exhibit. If you wish a private examination, you will need to contact the curator, and he can arrange for that. Ma'am, excuse me, where are you going? The exhibit is that way. The library is up at the front of the building. She points to those rooms there. Those are personal offices. Those are not available to the public or to members. You can see on this door right here that is the ladies' room. Yeah, the library. You'd be if you like set here. You'd be able to. The scholars' room is actually what it is, but for visiting scholars. But you'd be able to see out into the hallway and the lobby area. So you're not going to go up to the you're not going to go up to the Egyptian exhibit then? Okay, so are you actually going to search for anything, or are you just going to pretend that you're reading? I'm sorry, ma'am. I am not one of the scholars. I simply greet people as they come in. You feel free to look in the catalogs and see if there's anything that sounds interesting. Alright, how long are you going to wait? "5:30 is when it closes to the public. The Egyptian exhibit closes at 4, but the building itself closes at 5:30. You can't see the drivers from where you're sitting in here. Okay, you see different people coming in and out of offices, going up and down the corridor throughout the few hours that you're sitting here. Give me a endurance roll. Or something for paying, yeah, an endurance, I guess, for paying attention. Attentiveness. See if you start getting tired or bored. Oh no, you're sitting here for a good while. And you came in here at like 2 o'clock. And you're waiting until 5, so... Okay, you manage to hold your attention, and you're kind of fake reading your book, and you're keeping an eye on the door. You don't see anyone coming in and out of the door during the 3 hours that you're sitting here. Someone does come around at 5 o'clock. Someone does come around to the rooms, kind of peeks their head in and says, "Excuse me, gentlemen, ladies, the building will be closing in half an hour, so please conclude your studies for the day. Thank you very much." There's some other people that come into the room in here with you, and they're kind of perusing through the books and sitting down at the tables and conducting some research and reading and everything just like you are. After 4 o'clock, the traffic subsides significantly because that's when the public exhibit closes. Okay, as you head out to the ladies' room, you look back and you notice that the 2 drivers are still standing on either side of the door. And you also notice that they glance over at you as you go into the ladies' room. There's multiple stalls. There's a couple sinks, and there's two toilets in a secluded stall. You also notice the receptionist is kind of tidying up papers and stuff on her desk. Looks like she's getting stuff cleaned up and ready to head out for the day. No, I mean, you're like out in the open. I mean, there's nothing for you to hide behind. There's no shadows. I mean, you've got to pass in front of their line of sight. I'll roll for him to see. Alright, one of them does look like they're kind of looking away in another direction as you come around the corner, but the other one, he catches sight of you out of the corner of his eye, and he like turns to look in the direction of the movement. You can give me a stealth roll if you want. If you get seen though, then they're going to know that you're sneaking, as opposed to just moving like a normal person would. Alright, you peek around the corner and you notice they're kind of looking around a little bit. One of them is completely looking back in the other direction and doesn't have any spot or any chance of spotting you at all. The other one that's closer to you, you will have to pass within his periphery. And so, do you feel lucky, punk? Are you good with an extreme success? Or do you want to spend the luck to make it? I mean, are you good with the hard, or do you want to spend the 6 to make it extreme? Okay, so you try to time it where he's kind of looking off a little bit to where you think that you're going to be able to slip in um, past his periphery. So kind of imagine it like the old um, oh, the Metal Gear games of the 80s, where it showed the like cone of vision, and they're like scanning back and forth, and you try to jump the gap and get um, to the destination before the cone of vision comes back over to you. That's kind of what you're pulling here, and you manage to slip into the door, and you are pretty sure that you were not seen. Okay, how long are you going to stay locked in? Are you waiting until after the place closes? Okay, so this is a good place for us to wrap up. It is midnight. Irene is hanging out at the Pinhue Foundation after hours. The museum after midnight. Only it's not after midnight, but anyway. So, I am going to hold everything there, and we will stop the stream, and we will officially be done with tonight's session.